I trust you too, Miss Sarah. But throwing around the word like trust just makes you look suspicious, huh? Spoilers ahead for both routes of Your Turn to Die Death Game by Majority, at least up to the end of Chapter 3 Part 1 as of right now. Today, I'm gonna cover the character of the Beanie Man, and when I say spoilers, I mean spoilers. Things that will fundamentally change your experience with the game. If you haven't played Your Turn to Die yet, I would highly recommend at least giving the game a shot before watching this video. The game is completely free up to the current release point on VGPerson's site, which I've put in the description. I'm begging you to at least try the game out if you're even a little bit interested. Okay? This guy is honestly one of my favorite characters of all time. He's extremely well written and a character that constantly subverted my expectations to an absurd level, but in a good way. And I was honestly pretty surprised to see how split the fanbase was on his characterization, though I suppose I probably should have expected as much. I guess, comparing him to other characters of his archetype, I personally thought that the Beanie guy was honestly a pretty justifiable character as compared to some of them, which is why I kind of dislike it when people compare him to those characters and pretend like they're all on the same moral level. It just doesn't feel very justified to me. Don't get me wrong, I love those characters as well. I just think it's kind of bad faith to pretend like all of those characters should fall under the same umbrella, especially morality-wise. Though with that being said, I understand why they tend to be grouped together so often, and I do plan on talking about that in a future video. But I still think this holds up especially so with Sou Hiyori. Let's start with his introduction. Not that one, this one, which is the start of why so many people find him extremely suspicious. This entire section is pretty antagonistic and straight up frames him as a dubious person to say the least. Like, for God's sake. He asks you if you know what a majority vote is, something that's in the title of the game. Then, when you actually meet him, he's pleasant, friendly, and weak looking. How strange. Most people then automatically assume that he's trying to make himself look weak despite him being aware of the majority vote that seems to be the main theme of the game, something no one else has knowledge of. Which leads the player to a multitude of conclusions, all of which don't bode very well for Sou Hiyori. It doesn't help that throughout the first chapter, he's a constant character of interest for the player. First, he partners up with Sarah during the initial investigation, giving him the spotlight for a while. I still remember one of my acquaintances playing this bit, picking someone trustworthy and then groaning when they saw Sou show up. It's not a very good first impression. Then there's that bit with the gun and how he asks you for it with a little bit of aggression and distrust, though at least he gives it back to you and asks you to keep it close if you give it to him. After that, when the Russian roulette bit starts up, Sou just so happens to be outside of the room right when it begins, and he tries to go off to get help, and never comes back. Then we have the first majority vote in the second trial where Sou doesn't get any votes, and it seems obvious that he voted for Mishima. This is the point at which people start getting a little bit antagonistic towards him, at least in my experience. There's just too many things that point to him being more of a wildcard than a genuine and good ally to have. And people start noticing things, like how because of the scarf you can't see his collar. He's just really shady. But you never get the satisfaction of being proven right. There's always just enough plausible deniability. He's suspicious, but nothing is ever concrete. In addition, there are times that he truly seems to sympathize with the group, and the suspicious acts are sometimes justified as well. For example, when it's revealed that Mishima's life could have been saved, he shows genuine frustration and anger, or at least something that feels like it. Or when the stairs are revealed, he gives Sarah advice that seems genuine and well thought out. Then, it's revealed he had discovered a secret room that had a laptop in it, which was why he never came back during Russian roulette. There, he's been trying to figure out the password, and it's what he does up to the next event that involves him, where he's found knocked out. Someone in the group knocked Sou unconscious. Someone had attacked him and stolen the laptop. Well, that seems to clear him of a bit of suspicion. He seems genuine enough, and no matter how elaborate a plan, there can't be much reason for someone to hit themselves over the head. Right? Well, that doesn't matter for now. Sarah investigates the area looking for any clues and finds a card labeled Sacrifice. And then... okay, he's definitely not happy about that. Either way, you try to play it off, and he doesn't probe further, letting you go with a simple, I see, and a smile, before grouping up with the others. That's twice now that he's looked at you like that. It's just so weird. It's like he's going into the situation with a preconceived notion that you're a malicious person who's... whatever. From there, nothing really notable happens. He rests in the bar with Kanna while everyone else searches for now, and his next appearance is a bit later, when you've explored quite a bit of the second floor and managed to get to the black and white rooms. When you exit, Sou and Kanna approach you, with him talking about how you should probably rest, though with the recent attack he feels like you'd probably be troubled if you tried. That seems reasonable enough, surprisingly. It is true that with someone going around clubbing people over the head, it's hard to rest. It's kind of hard to doubt Sou, when he actually seems pretty sensible, at times at least. But you're never able to fully clear him or cast him under suspicion despite so many things providing reasons for both. Which leads to a lot of people casting doubt on him. It's easier to suspect than trust after all, especially in games like these. Then the conversation steers into a strange direction. Hey, Joe's your best friend, right? Miss Sarah, do you remember that vote? You see, I voted for Joe. Joe didn't vote for himself. And Sou is offering this information to you. Why? Telling you that, he apologizes for weirding you out before leaving. If he voted for Joe, who did Joe vote for? Questions start running through your mind. Sou could just be lying, but what reason would he have to do that here? Having you question Joe, he should know that you trust him, right? That's such an unnecessary risk if it was a lie. It's better to not think about that for now. Doesn't take long anyway for the main game to begin. You find out pretty quickly that Sou has been lying about some very important things. Starting with, first of all, his role in the main game, where the group has to pick one member to die. For those unaware, there are 4 roles: Commoner, Keymaster, Sage, and Sacrifice. The Commoner has no special powers at all. If voted, they die. It's simple. The Keymaster has a special responsibility. If voted, everyone in the game dies. It's the strongest card in the game, and one that provides its user with a responsibility. The Sage has a special power. They're able to tell who the Keymaster is and cannot lie about the result. Last of all is the Sacrifice, who will die by the end of the game if they are not voted. If they are voted, everyone else dies, but they and a person of their choice gets to live. Excluding the Commoner, there's only one of each role. Simple, right? Well, you're the Keymaster. It's the card that you were assigned, and you go into the game with a heavy heart, knowing that if you die, everyone else does too. And yet, depending on your choices, the game could start with Sou's discussion, which he requests to start talks with, where he says, "You see, I'm the Keymaster." This is when your suspicions are confirmed. Sou is a liar. The trust he has built, or the suspicion he has tried to downplay, it all comes crashing down. For you, and no one else but whoever the Sage is. Whether or not you choose to stand up to Sou's claim is up to you, but at the end of the day, he lied, and your brain starts working. What else has he lied about? Is he just claiming the Keymaster role because he wants to avoid being voted, or is there a more malicious reason? For the rest of the game, there's this lingering sense of distrust between you, Sou, and the others caused by him. Especially if you contested his claim, then the group knows for sure that either you or Sou are lying. Add in the discord that he sows by piling up lies and revealing truths, and the game ends up in disarray. It's quite clear at this point that Sou is a bit of a compulsive liar. There's a few things he does that are fairly confusing, in my opinion, the most notable of which being when he tells you he voted for Joe. It didn't exactly offer him much of an advantage, and I kind of fail to see what he gained from that lie. But I might just be dumb. In the end, he easily confesses to it during the main game, though it results in him taking a hit in his reputation. More importantly though, he also talks about the laptop, who stole it, and the information that he saw on it, which misleadingly points to you and Joe looking forward to the games. In addition, he connected the laptop to Now and Kai, before then linking you, Joe, and Kai together in deep suspicion. which causes everyone to look at you with doubtful eyes too, despite Sou's lies. But even with the new evidence, everyone still seems to trust and believe in you, which is weird. There's real facts and evidence on the table here. Logically speaking, you should be being questioned, not him. It just doesn't make any sense. He was even attacked by Nao in her attempt to reclaim the laptop. It all made sense. He was correct. Right? So why is he being doubted now? How pitiful. It seems the difference in trust between you is the difference between heaven and earth. With that, Sou snaps, and his team sets the tone for the rest of the main game. There's a certain feeling of dissonance and discomfort. Regardless of whether you talk Sou down or not, nothing changes. Either way, you, Kai, and Joe end up in the final vote due to how dubious you three are with Sou's information, along with Sou himself with how suspicious he is. Kanna is also voted in, with her claim of no longer wanting to live. And in the final vote, Joe supports your claim as Keymaster as the Sage, before Kanna does the same for Sou, substantiating his claim as Keymaster. Which is when Kai comes in, who also claims Sage and reinforces your Keymaster claim. With the connection between you, Kai, and Joe made in an earlier discussion, Sou created a no-win situation for you. Even if he was outed as a liar, and even if you were incredibly trusted, he's managed to create a situation in which no one could vote for him without being extremely certain that he isn't Keymaster or that you were. The discord he's created has made it so that you had to prove, without reasonable doubt, who the Sage was. And that's proven to be extremely difficult until you ask the Sages to describe the designs. And with some reasoning, you deduce the true roles of everyone in the game, resulting in the deaths of... well, that's a story for another time. At this point, a lot of people are wondering why Sou acts the way he does. Is he a traitor, working with the kidnappers, or just someone who desperately wants to survive? His overconfidence and the moment where he snaps suggest that he's a bit more than a regular participant, but still. Was he justified in acting the way he did? Nao did attack him. If someone was in his position, they'd probably lose trust in the others too, especially when, upon starting the next chapter, Sou is found attacked again. When he wakes up, he seems to have lost all his memories. Or is he lying about that? His reaction seems genuine enough. He does genuinely seem much friendlier, and a lot less malicious overall, even helping out with attractions and generally just being more pleasant to be around. It reaches a point where some almost believe he truly lost his memories of the main game, and that it was a different personality or something, until day 2's afternoon. Kanna asks Sarah to accompany her to a hidden room in the ruined corridor, a room similar to the first trial she partook in. Inside, Sarah investigates and finds a phone, one that has a message apparently written by Kanna's sister, which curses the bucket girl for killing her. Upon hearing your surprise, Kanna goes into the room curious about what you're holding in your hand, before Sou comes in smiling, to call for Kanna. You hide the phone as he comes in. Thank God he showed up. Wow, never thought you'd think that about Sou, huh? He seems to catch on to something being a little strange about Sarah, but doesn't quite confront you about it. And if you try to go back, he even offers to join you for your protection. Well, later that afternoon, you decide to grab the phone to make sure Kanna doesn't see it. After all, she still blames herself for her sister's death. You head to the hidden room and... what are you looking for? You bitch. Could it be this phone? And finally, for the first time while in a direct conversation with Sou in Chapter 2, his theme starts, and you're reminded of how much of a liar he was in Chapter 1. He was pretending the entire time. Players tend to fall into one of two categories at this point. Yeah, I thought so. And you lying piece of gut. Most people tend to fall into the first category, but yeah. I don't think very many people were surprised, just disappointed. But surprisingly, he still doesn't seem too villain-ish here. Amazing, huh? This is definitely trying to drive Kanna into a corner. Just a solid ball of malice. Some people will do anything to harass. He points out how, logically speaking, Kanna's sister couldn't have left this message behind. She was on death's door, after all. It just made more sense that someone put that message there on purpose, writing it themselves to destroy Kanna's spirit. And he's right. Up to when he suspects that you did it. Why does he just keep suspecting you around every turn? God, whatever. Either way, he leaves with the final word and with the phone. Depending on if you tried to take the phone by force or not, you might have noticed something a little sooner, but I'll go into that later. Later on, you and KG confront Sou and Kanna in the ruined corridor. Someone you entrusted with Kai's dead laptop had given it to Kanna in exchange for tokens. Which means, it's now fallen into Sou's hands. Sou promised Kanna that he would give her the phone in return for the laptop. And when he passes it to her, you think Kanna's going to lose it again. But her reaction... Sou had changed the message to something far more positive and affirming. What's he looking to gain? To exploit Kanna or try to gain trust with the group? Just what is he trying to do? The possibility of him being on your side runs through your mind. Or maybe he's just trying to build trust to exploit later. But then, KG points out something many players have already noticed. How you can't see Sou's collar because of his scarf, and how suspicious that is. But Sou's reaction is, well, he's definitely got some no good idea again. And he makes an offer. I've changed my mind. Let's do a trade. I'll return the laptop if you give me 50 of your tokens. Okay, but that's not very reasonable. Sounds like a bad idea. Don't get me wrong. If you gave 50 tokens to Miss Sarah, that would do too. Well, that's a bit... What's the matter? With someone as trustworthy as Miss Sarah, even giving 50 tokens should be easy. I mean, he's not wrong, right? But KG doesn't give you his tokens. Well now, I guess that was mean, KG. Here's my apology. Can you see it? The exact same collar. Doesn't really clear him of that much suspicion, in your mind at least. He still did what he did in the main game, but with how he's treating Kanna now, you can't be sure. For now though, better to be doubtful, right? Especially with how he just showed you how KG doesn't trust you at all. As antagonistic as he is, the next moment where he gets a large amount of characterization is during the final attraction. Despite how suspicious and hostile he's been, he's relatively quiet here. Until the possibility of a fake survivor pops up. It's here that his wit really shines as he tries to assist in saving Jin. While you and the others are stuck on a discussion that can't move, he chimes in, trying to lead the discussion in the right direction. It's because of his intervention that the possibility of saving Reko, and in your mind, Jin, becomes reality, not in spite of it. This attraction shows how useful Sou truly is as an ally. He's constantly giving you alternate perspectives as outlandish as they seem. When he's cooperating with the group, when he has no reason to provoke you, he will do his best to avoid unnecessary casualties. Of course, he's still a bit passive-aggressive at times, but near the end, he supports your deduction, pointing out how it's probably the only way to save Jin if Kyutaro doesn't press the button. And when the doll is altered, he actually shows empathy. If you've been paying attention, you would know that this empathy is probably genuine. There's small little moments which really show how frustrated Sou is with his situation, despite the persona he puts on. Well, that doesn't mean he was justified in doing what he did, regardless of why he did it. But observant players would probably realize by this point that it's likelier he's on your side rather than the side of the kidnappers. Something like an unwilling traitor, maybe. You also get to play as him in a nightmare sequence at the start of Chapter 2 Part 2, which in my opinion humanizes him a lot more. Things like stumbling on a dead body of himself in the secret room that he found in Chapter 1. Very symbolic, I know. or when he enters the main game grounds and finds a frying pan, an item tied to his guilt of indirectly killing Kai. And then Sarah shows up. At least the Sarah he's built up in his mind. Someone manipulative and willing to remove anyone who gets in her way. And then there's this small little bit of him being an asshole towards Kanna. Basically, this personally almost convinced me that he was a true participant, or at least someone who was put into the game unwillingly. Again, as usual, not enough to clear him. Maybe he's just being manipulated by the runners of the death game or something like that. You can never really be sure. And then, the guy approaches you, hitting you with this banger of a line. I want to reconcile. Okay, buddy. Sorry, but I'm thinking about what I've done. I'm not gonna let the main game happen. Look at my eyes! I want to put an end to this ridiculous death game. So how about we all share this laptop? In the end, I couldn't see what was on it because the password had been changed. Ah, so that's what he wanted. Makes more sense. Well, whatever. I really do just want to reconcile though. Let's shake hands, Miss Sarah. Alright, fine. You asshole, what the fuck? What is that guy thinking? No time to think about that now. You reconcile with Kanna and the group starts working together. You key in the password and start looking at the information Kai has given you. But wait, who's that? And why does he have Sou's scarf? Everyone has a reaction to him too. Sou even runs away when he sees the person. You're perplexed and you try to get your grip on the situation. It's clear by now. Sou is connected in some way. The scarf proves it. And the person who wears it was brought back to life and is a part of the organization that made this game. There's just no way he's unrelated, right? And then... fuck. Well, at least Jin pulls you back to your senses and you're able to get back on your feet, letting you keep investigating for now. With that, you're able to get some more key items, and generally things go as you would expect till Now asks for a favor. She wants an important item from you. A chip, gotten from the doll Rio Ranger's head. Whether you trust her or not, she takes it from you and Sou shows up. He's manipulated her into getting the chip for him. To be fair, he's not exactly wrong about us not knowing what we're gonna do with the chip. But then, Miss Now switches sides. Kinda deserved. But what's Now planning? You, Jin and Sou chase after her, and it's soon revealed what she's doing. The Mishima AI in her room asked her to bring the chip and the laptop over to somehow send us a map to assist in our escape. Seems a little shady, but nothing can shake Now's trust in the professor. She connects the plug and the AI reveals its malicious intentions. God, we could have all seen this coming, honestly. I kind of hate how an error has occurred. Well, what I was going to say was how I hate how Now seems to not have grown at all since chapter 1, despite her help and deductions in the final attraction. That really caught me off guard on my first playthrough and made Now one of my favorite... Well, let's save that for Now's video. But this is still an important moment for the Beanie Man. Now trusted Sou. She went to him for advice and followed his plan. Personally for me, this moment cemented Sou's affiliation in the game. Despite the evidence, I couldn't see Sou as someone who was working with the organization that wanted us to kill each other. Sure, there's that weird scarf thing which means he's associated with someone from the group. And also how he somehow just gets knowledge of stuff that we have no clue about. For example, things about the main game and the roles, the charger, and how he found out about Rio's chip. Or also just how kind of annoying he is up to this point. But he just deleted the fake Mishima AI. Something that was definitely on the side of the kidnappers, which was trying to destroy the chip in order to remove a nuisance to the death game. He has to be on our side, right? At least it's likelier that he is than not. Probably. And with that, the participants' escape attempt begins. Sou sits down and tells you to gather everyone in the lobby while he messes with the laptop. And while you group everyone up, he finds the secret room. With your help, he manages to neutralize the security and unlock the suspicious vending machine in the long stairs. And according to Sou, it leads straight to the exit after climbing some stairs. In a hurry, the participants hurry through, having optimistic talks about what they're gonna do when everything's done while Sou spearheads the group to victory. And you finally arrive at the winner's room. Up ahead is the exit, Miss Sarah. Right past the hallway, the exit is right there. Wait. What the heck is this? This isn't how things are supposed to... The exit is blocked? Then everything we did was for nothing? And the second main game is coming up. And right now, you have that card. Everyone goes their separate ways. Keiji and Alice, if he's still alive, start trying to clear out the debris with Kyutaro knocked out nearby. Now Enrico, if she's still alive, are together, consolidating their thoughts before the start of the main game. Kanna descends the stairs. But Sou hasn't given up. He's still desperately fighting for something. Anything just to get out of here. And he talks about the roll card data. You can see why I just really can't see Sou as an enemy. His desperation when he discovered the exit was blocked, the things he did for the sake of escape. It all felt like he was a genuine participant. I'm pretty sure a lot of people feel like this is a turning point as well, where Sou seems genuinely helpful and honest. It doesn't feel like him scheming. He's just a smart person who wants to escape the death game. You're in a pretty bad situation too. With the sacrifice, you can't really... Never mind? Someone traded the sacrifice away from you and gave you the commoner. But why? Before you have time to think, the second main game begins. And at first, it looks like Sou's still on your side. He makes pretty good observations and provides them to the group without prompting. But when one of the Yabusame siblings points out how suspicious he is, it feels like he reverts back to his persona from the first main game again. He's, again, outwardly antagonistic, going out of his way to make himself the villain. I personally started to scramble around trying to figure out why. He's shown that he's somewhat cared for Kanna before. Was that an act? Or is he trying to protect Kanna somehow? There was that last minute trade and Sou did say he might hack the roll card data. Something's just weird. It doesn't feel like he's trying to get her killed. As the discussions continue, the main candidates are easily decided. You and Kyutaro are easily left out of the preliminary vote. Kyutaro with his uncontested Keymaster claim, and you were highly suspected to be the sacrifice. With that, the candidates were Keiji due to his actions during his first trial that were witnessed through a recording, Sou due to his suspiciousness and recklessness. So for example, he used a stun gun on Kyutaro. Where the hell do you even find something like that, let alone be panicky enough to use it without looking? The remaining two candidates that are voted in without much good reason are Kanna and Now. With that, the group starts working out the card trades with the main discussion surrounding Keiji and Sou. The first and second trades are easy enough. The first was Keiji trading the Keymaster to Sarah, and the second was someone trading the sacrifice to Kyutaro. The third trade was done by Sou, when he ran away after using the laptop with the group. That's where Sou had you and Kyutaro trade, passing the Keymaster to Kyutaro and the sacrifice to you. The weird ones are the fourth and fifth trades respectively. Sou reasons that the fourth trade was you, trading away your sacrifice with Keiji and deliberately putting him under suspicion so that you could get Keiji voted out and, well, that's just not right, is it? After all, your sacrifice was taken away in the fifth trade. Again, it feels like he holds something against you. He's not stupid, that's for sure, but he's desperate to make you out to be the villain. He holds so much against you that his line of thinking just leads him to conclusions like that, even if he's unaware of how much his biases affect his deductions. And it leads to him supposedly being blindsided by Kyutaro and Keiji. The fourth trait was a collaboration between not you and Keiji, but the detective and Kyutaro. And it for once seems like you have Sou on the ropes for an extended period of time. It seems obvious. Sou can't possibly have the sacrifice card due to him thinking Keiji had it the entire time, and he admitted it himself. He's a commoner. All you have to do now is vote Sou out. He really seems distraught and a little scared, and Keiji gets pretty overconfident here. To really put it into perspective how long this bit goes on for, even extracting Sou at this point shows him losing his train of thought. Well, at least until you guys realize that he could have known Kyutaro's true role the entire time. After all, he used the stun gun on Kyutaro and had the chance to look at his tablet, which someone like Sou most definitely would have. And with that, he drops his act. Well, not really. It's this bit that really demonstrates Sou's acting and lying abilities in my opinion. I think quite a few people fell for his act here. He genuinely seemed, at least to me, like he was fooled. With that, the group tries to reason out who has Sarah's sacrifice. If Keiji and Kyutaro are to be believed, one thing becomes clear to the group. Someone took the sacrifice away from you during the 5th trade. Sou, Kanna, or Nao. And the truth is pretty quickly revealed with a simple deduction. Kanna descended the stairs. She dropped the phone on the way down, which you found. But Sou comes in. Sheesh. She must have just dropped it while we were all climbing the stairs, surely. Well, no, she was in the front with Sou. If she dropped it, everyone would have seen it. So why did you come in to lie? The message on the phone says all you need to know. Her big sister, Kugi, is already dead. So the big sister in this message is Sarah. Kanna took the sacrifice for herself. She wanted you to live. Sou tried to protect Kanna. That seems obvious now. He tried to get Kanna voted because he thought she was the sacrifice. He was aware of it from the start. His protectiveness of Kanna was genuine. Nothing can argue against that now. And with the knowledge that Kanna's role had been revealed, Sou despairs. But then, will you listen carefully to what Kanna has to say? Kanna traded for your sacrifice, saving you and preventing Sou from being the direct cause of your death. But she didn't get your card. She got a commoner's card. But how? If you were to trust Kanna's word, something's gone miserably wrong here. Sou did say that he would maybe hack the role data, right? That was my first thought, and I think a lot of others as well. But another possibility comes up. Gashu's transgression, which was brought up at the start of the trial. To make use of the valuable time you have left, you ask Sou to, for once, be honest. If you manage to uncover Gashu's transgression, you can get a 24-hour extension before the retry, at least according to the Floor Master's code. You just have to figure it out. All Sou has to do is tell us what he's done. And the first thing he does is look at Kanna. Just to make sure she isn't lying. That this isn't some gambit, but a real chance to beat the death game with its own rules. And when Kanna gives him the okay, something snaps, and Sou's persona drops. He throws away nearly everything that made him feel safe. His mask, his lies, and his suspicion of you. It all disappears in this moment. You finally won his trust in some way, and with that, his cooperation. In this section, the group finally gets a chance to turn the tables, to overturn the main game, and the music changes to a triumphant and feverish motif to match that. As the discussions continue, a piece of evidence is presented, the 4 papers provided to you by Sue Miley. Everyone scrambles to figure out what it means, but it soon comes to light that someone isn't being too honest about what they know. Asking Gashu, he freely admits that there are only 20 participants in the death game. By matching the board in the bar and the names on the sheet, you guys managed to deduce that there's an extra person somehow. The odd person out is a Shin Tsukimi, the only person not on the board in the bar. And Keiji points out something that becomes obvious to a lot of players. Sou's motif then melts into the music. If this is revealed, he will have nothing to lose. He would be forced to fight on your side. Only one person would have lied about their name by this point and been able to keep up the act. The question is, why? So, what exactly are you afraid of? It's not like he doesn't want to trust you guys. It's not like he wants to lie. His heart's shaking, and with a bit of a push, he finally throws away the last thing he held on to. His false name. This scene is a lot more significant than what people give it credit for. Shin has, in his eyes, discarded the last thing that could keep him safe. He's finally himself. He's found trust in the group, trust in you despite the looming possibility of the final vote. This is his last chance, and he lets everything go just for that single day extension. He confesses the last secrets he desperately held on to. Those numbers are the chances of victory of a participant. The reason why he acted the way he did, why he was so desperate to survive, why he lied about everything. With his simulated personality, he had no chance of surviving. So he threw Shin Tsukimi away. He left his old self behind and took on the persona of Sou Hiyori in order to survive. And suddenly, it clicks. But even then, nothing about Gashu's transgression has been uncovered yet. Time has run out. And when it seems like there's no more hope left... Are you giving up, Sarah? Shin's desperate, and he tells you everything he did. That's all he can do. He can't think of anything. It's all on you. And he begs you. He begs for you to find Gashu's transgression. Whether or not you return his trust, it doesn't matter. Either you choose to fight for him and he's grateful for your help, or everyone else does. Honestly, this part kind of makes me smile. The group fights even though they already have a conclusion. Even though the easy solution is to just vote Shin out, they actively try to save his life. I know some people are gonna give me shit for that, pretending like Shin did nothing wrong, but let me explain my reasoning later in the video. In the end, the group manages to figure out Gashu's transgression. He forced the sacrifice onto Now when it should have instead been traded to Kanna. And with that, relief washes over the group. Before Gashu reveals something. You have overlooked something important about the Floor Master's Code. The Floor Master's Code, which was what you were basing your 24-hour extension on? What did you miss? If I take responsibility on my life, then the main game shall continue. Oh. And with that, all hope is lost, with the group having to pick between Kanna and Shin. Shin is under the impression that this is where he dies, that he's done all he could. But Kanna steps in. Everyone, won't you vote for Kanna? Shin goes apeshit, and honestly, pretty justifiably. Kanna was the only person who gave him a chance. Someone like him, who practically killed others to keep himself safe. Someone who was an active detriment to the group's unity and safety at times. And she's trying to sacrifice herself for him? After she's tried to get herself killed several times, offering herself up to be voted in the first main game, trading for Sarah's sacrifice, and now trying to get herself voted in his stead. As Shin says, she's just a thoughtless kid. Someone with a martyr complex, desperate to believe that her dying would let the group be better off. But that's a story for another time. Despite everything, she still believed in him till the end. She deserves better, he thinks, that she shouldn't die for his sake. And for that, he argues to the end. He fights not for his survival, but for Kanna's. whether or not he gets his wish is up to you. Alright, I swear, I'm done, okay? I just really needed to gush about all the moments Shin gets to shine. I'm gonna go talk about what I thought about all of that, along with how his story progresses from the second main game now. In my opinion, Shin's arc has never been about forgiveness. He's someone who has done things to the group, to Sarah, to you, that were entirely unjustifiable. No matter how much I defend him, no matter how much I like him, his indefensible actions will still remain. He sowed entirely unnecessary discord and distrust in the group in a situation that was already quite dire. He indirectly caused the deaths of Sarah's best friend and the group's likely most useful ally, along with being an active detriment at points with his attempts to monopolize resources and information. For example, keeping what he knows about the main game to himself or his shenanigans with the laptop. But that doesn't mean he's a villain, nor does it mean he had fully malicious intentions. Yes, he was a detriment, and yes, he did make mistakes. He himself admits it. But all he was a person. Someone who was in dire straits and did what he thought was necessary to survive. He truly believed that if he trusted anyone, without an ounce of manipulation, he would face what his real self would have. The 0% victory rate is evidence of that. The organization itself admits freely to Shin that the data was accurate to make him change. They force him to accept the fact that if he stayed the way he was, he would have to face certain death. His first trial has a simple effect on him. It breaks him. It stresses him to the point that he sees another self, which could be a doll or maybe just a hallucination, which somehow forces him to change. Could you really hold it together if you were told that you were going to die? That you had no chance of surviving? That in the thousands of simulated worlds out there, you died in every single one? That even if he changed himself, that he became Sou Hiyori, it's likely he still faced death? I guess that's a pretty heavy question, and unless you faced death before, the answer's a bit blurry, especially if how I want to die has been a fairly trivial statement in recent times. I personally wouldn't be able to accept my death. While I might be a bit mean to Shin about the things he did, I can sympathize with him. I understand why he did what he did, and I honestly can't say for sure that I wouldn't do the same, prioritizing my own safety over others when faced with the Reaper, and I think a lot of you can agree with me on this. A good example, I think, is how a lot of people give Shin shit for treating Sarah the way he does, and I can understand that. But you have to realize that Shin has logical reasons for doing so. He knew the victory rates, and you had the highest out of any participant by a large margin. A high school girl with no notable skills. Isn't that just suspicious? Along with that, your closest confidants in the first main game were a complete unknown. Joe and Kai weren't on the papers, and while Joe seemed relatively ordinary, Kai had ties to the kidnappers and even went as far as to send Now on a hit and run to retrieve the laptop. If I was Shin, I would probably antagonize the hell out of Sarah too, but that doesn't justify what he does. The thought of death messes with his rationality, and you can see that. He struggles with intense paranoia about Sarah due to her highest win percentage, to the point that she haunts his dreams. And there's also that part where he begs you to save his life. In addition, there's also a little small bit where he tries to convince himself that Gashu is an ally, likely due to the dialogue you heard on the first floor. Something neither Keiji and Sarah even consider despite them hearing the exact same dialogue. It kind of feels like Shin's a bit of a speaker for the player. Most of his reasonings are in the end a bit off, but something you'd likely come to the conclusion to yourself if you look at everything at face value, like the thing I just mentioned about Gashu being an ally. But I'm going off track here. There are several lines in the second main game that showcase this irrationality around his survival so well. I don't think Shin is ever redeemed or forgiven for what he did. The game never directly allows Sarah to do so, and I think that's fine. In fact, when you vote him out, when you do what he wants you to, there's this exchange between Sarah and Shin. A lot of people see this as Sarah admitting to despising Shin, that she wanted him dead. I personally disagree. I know she has a lot of reason to do so, but for me, I always saw this as an exchange of letting Sarah move on. He doesn't want you to grieve for him. He doesn't want you to burden yourself with his death. He doesn't want you to redeem or forgive him. And Sarah knows this, which is why she responds the way she does. Or, if you hate Shin, you can take the words at face value as well. This part is excellently written in my opinion because of that. Depending on the type of person you are, that conversation could mean a multitude of things, especially from Sarah's side. However, in my opinion, this notion of letting Sarah move on clicks really well with the rest of the emotion route. After this, Shin removes his collar and runs in a last-ditch effort, before being fatally wounded. But before passing, he enables the Joe AI. Notably, in the CG for this choice, his scarf is missing. I'll go into that later. The one thing wrong in your reasoning that he mentions here is trying to hold yourself responsible for everyone's lives. It isn't your fault that Joe died, and it isn't your fault that Shin dies either. This sets up the tone for the rest of Kanna's route, where Sarah pushes forward. She burdened herself with guilt in chapter 2, telling herself that she was still fighting despite the people who were lost. Shin manages to change this line of thinking with his final act, letting her realize that she should be fighting for the people who were lost, effectively helping mold her survivor's guilt into a will and determination to fight. With that, he finally passes, entrusting his hope and the safety of the group to you. And Sarah doesn't forgive him. All she does is thank him. Shin was cursed with regret, just like you. He was the direct cause of some people's deaths, for God's sake. He made mistakes. That's why the game never tries to justify what he does and never allows the others to forgive him. He doesn't want your forgiveness, he doesn't want your redemption. He just wants for you to be able to work with the group, and for you guys to make it out alive with Kanna. I talked earlier about Shin's desperation when it comes to his survival. A lot of us describe Shin as someone who would do anything to survive. But what makes his character shine so much is what he does to subvert that. Even though he constantly clings to life, someone makes him falter. Someone who he's grown to care for despite it all. From the start of the second main game, when he realized that Kanna grabbed Sarah's sacrifice to save her, he actively tries to get her voted out. Even though he's fully aware that if Kanna does get her wish, he wouldn't be the one surviving, but Sarah. He was willing to die for her, and had already resolved himself to do so a long time ago. As long as she was safe, he was happy, and that's why he encourages you with Joe's AI. Whether or not you as the player decide to forgive him is entirely your decision. Some of you might absolutely hate his guts, but I think that everyone can at least understand his actions. The logic route plays out in the complete opposite direction, also thanks to Shin. Rather than the theme of moving on, Sarah and Shin are constantly haunted by the past as compared to Sarah and Kanna in emotion, at least so far. In Shin's route, Kanna is voted out and he curses you. He would never forgive you for killing Kanna for his sake, the only person who ever gave him a chance despite how he acted. If he was voted, he might have been able to escape his fate too, with his knowledge on how to defuse his collar. You can see why he's a little mad. When Kanna is executed, he rambles to himself about how he'll kill everyone who killed Kanna willingly, starting with tampering with the Joe AI and leaving it for you to stumble upon. It breaks Sarah down so bad that she uses a surveillance machine in order to force herself to forget about Joe and let go of the hallucinations. This line, about sacrificing someone weaker than you to survive, is a constant theme for Shin. I think Nao's ending frames this part of his character perfectly. While everyone else is shocked at you for voting for Nao, other than maybe Kanna, Shin isn't surprised at all. In fact, he seems more bitter than anything else. He was one of the weak. In his mind, he never had a chance. Every moment, he wondered if he was just going to die in the next minute. He was living like that up to this point, in constant suspicion of those he considered the strong. People like Keiji or Sarah, those who never had to care about surviving, but winning. While people like Kanna or Jin had to struggle, the strong got a free pass, something that he holds against you. He had to lie, to put up all the smoke and mirrors just so he could survive. And all you had to do was be yourself. It just didn't feel fair. Throughout the entirety of Logic's Chapter 3 Part 1, Sarah is constantly haunted by mentions of Joe. She knows she had a best friend, someone who she held close to her, but she blocked them out. And when Midori reveals the truth about Sarah, how she acted and the way she fought in the simulations, she realizes that she's no longer being held in check. That's how she ended up manipulating Ranmaru, having him fight for her survival. Shin, in trying to hurt and destroy Sarah, helped to turn her into the monster he saw in his dreams. He single-handedly pushes Sarah into becoming Miss 15.5%, and he has no one but himself to blame for that. And I think this is extremely important to note. Shin isn't stupid, and he's a person who's easy to sympathize with. This is something I emphasize, and it's something I'm going to continue to emphasize. But he makes mistakes, like tampering with the Joe AI or not letting everyone know that he knows how to defuse his collar. In the logic route, this is the cause of more blood on his hands, with the Yabusame sibling being another death he somehow indirectly causes. But that doesn't mean he's intentionally malicious. Sure, he's a little passive-aggressive, and he himself says it. He'll destroy everyone who killed Kanna, the Floor Masters, you, and Keiji. But the few moments in Chapter 3 Part 1 where Shin shines are when he tries to push this narrative that he doesn't care about any of you. And at first it seems like he's telling the truth. He's just holding out, helping out because he has to. An unwilling ally, doing what he can to survive. But the game destroys this notion. You remember when I mentioned that ending CG with Shin in it without his scarf? I brought that up because I wanted to talk about the connotation that scarf has. It's the original Soul Scarf, someone who played with and killed people from young. Someone who was extremely manipulative and sadistic. But he was still Shin's only friend for a long time. When he disappeared, he left his scarf behind in Shin's room, and before long Shin just started wearing it. He kind of missed him in some way. I think a lot of people agree with me on this. The scarf represents Soul's control and remaining influence on Shin. His antagonistic mask relies on a lot of Soul's traits. His scheming, manipulative, and overconfident nature are all things that stand out to me. And a lot of people point out how Shin has this one specific sprite, or silhouette, where he bends over with his arms open, and describe how it shows a truthful Shin. The scarf obscures him the least in it, and he does truly seem genuine. The section where he fixes panic when Keiji reveals his role as Keymaster, along with that bit where he loses the laptop, prove that this isn't the case, as he's acting in both instances. It's his go-to when he's being honest, but also when he's pretending to panic too. And this, right here, this sprite with his hands out like he usually does, but with his eyes tainted by green. This sprite is only used when Shin is being entirely and completely truthful. It's used in other instances, like when he tells Kanna to not say anything when she admits to trading for Sarah's sacrifice, or when he curses you for not voting for him. Of course, this doesn't mean the normal version isn't used when he's not lying either, but he can fake those emotions when necessary. When his eyes turn that shade of green, he's not faking it anymore. What makes me think that Shin is actually far from malicious, especially when it comes to the other participants, is the banquet. This sprite is used pretty often in this subgame. Shin gets outmaneuvered by Sou several times, and he can't help but feel uncomfortable when faced with his old abusive friend, as his AI would admit. And when it looks like all is lost, he gets desperate. He begs again for his old friend to stop. He's begging, not for his own survival, but for Jin's. He doesn't want Jin to die. To say that Shin is a malicious person is to misunderstand him as a character. He's someone who's intelligent and manipulative, but at his core, empathetic and a genuinely good person. Behind all the smoke and mirrors and the deceit is a person. Even when he resolves to kill everyone who killed Kanna, he can't help it. Even though Jin contributed to Kanna's death, well, I guess he was pressured into it, but still. Shin isn't just mindlessly wishing for death on others. He still wants to save them, at least those who fought for Kanna's survival. Unfortunately, by the end of the banquet, no one who voted for him survives. But what do I know? The second part of Chapter 3 still hasn't been released yet by the time this video releases. Whether or not Shin's allegiance will change in his route, who really knows for sure other than Nankidai? But to put Shin down as evil, or as someone willing to kill everyone else to get his way, is a bit uncalled for now in my opinion. He was a weakling, someone who had no chance of survival, at least according to the numerous simulations out there. He changed himself just to survive, and ended up hurting people because of it. He was selfish, and he prioritized his survival over the group's. But you can understand what he did, especially if you were put in a similar situation. You can understand why he is the way he is. You can appreciate his protectiveness of Kanna. But you can also see that he has flaws, which are emphasized by the game at several points. That, in my opinion, is why Shin is such a strong characterization of a weak person. He was someone who forced himself to be strong. Someone who, behind the insecure mask, just wanted to survive, and makes miscalculations because of that. He believed that the group could be split into the weak and the strong, but the game deconstructs that belief. It shows him, it shows Jin, it shows Nao, it shows Kanna, all characters who had the odds stacked against them and chose to fight, who stood up against the odds despite it all. It shows Sara, it shows Keiji, it shows Kyutaro, all characters who are strong, but don't end up living to that all the time. Sara falters, we of all people know that, but so does Keiji and so does Kyutaro. This belief that he was one of the weak wasn't necessarily true to begin with. His cunning and smarts show that. No matter the options you pick in the game, he ends up absolutely dismantling that belief. Unfortunately, he himself never notices that. He was at the bottom of the 4 papers for a reason, and he's so blinded by that fact that it overshadows everything else. This is my opinion, but Shin isn't a weakling. He's someone who chose to be weak, someone who could never sacrifice someone like Kanna, as ruthless as he tried to appear in the first main game. He's someone who can't bring himself to kill people he sees as innocent. But I'm rambling for too long again. I know I framed the logic route quite negatively in this video, just know that I don't think that badly of it. It's what I picked in my first playthrough. Last of all, everything in this video is my opinion and observations, which could always be incorrect. Please don't take everything in this video as fact or as what Nankida intended, okay? Thanks for watching till the end, and make sure to visit again, yeah? See you guys later.